Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Pene, and I'm an undergraduate student in Rowan University's Geography, Planning, and Sustainability Department. Today, I, along with my fellow planning studio members, will be presenting our 2022 project entitled Community Perceptions of Food Insecurity and Healthy Food Access in Camden, New Jersey. We conducted this project over the past 4 months under the supervision of Dr. Minar and in collaboration with our primary community partner, Invincible City, founded by Frederick Byram. To begin our presentation, I would like to provide you a brief overview of how we conceptualized our project, who was involved, the areas we studied, and the deliverables we created. As a team, we developed 4 main questions that guided our research. Our first question was, how do residents and stakeholders perceive food insecurity in Waterfront South and Bergen Square neighborhoods of Camden? Although timing was a large factor in helping us determine which neighborhoods we focused on, we also chose Waterfront South and Bergen Square because they both have a pronounced history with lingering food insecurity compared to the other neighborhoods in Camden. With our focus set on the neighborhood level, we then asked ourselves, how can communities address the problem of food insecurity to uncover practical and thoughtful recommendations to address our project's core issue? Based on the work of Mr. Byram and Invincible City, we created our next 2 questions. In what ways could an online grocery delivery model be a solution? And how do neighborhood residents feel about potential online grocery delivery model? We used the last 2 questions to position Mr. Byram's proposed model as one of many solutions that could assist our project area with achieving food justice. Our research team consisted of 8 Rowan University students, including 3 graduate students and 5 undergraduate students. In addition to our primary community partner, the Heart of Camden and Shalom Baptist Church, were instrumental in assisting us with delivering our 2 focus groups, one in each of the chosen neighborhoods. Our work began in January, which involved initial discussions about how to approach and design our project, in addition to conducting a literature review. We collected primary data through a food environment scan, a community survey, focus groups, and interviews in February and March. We analyzed all the data from late March to mid-April, which is also when we began drafting our final report. Next month, we will have a final draft of our report ready for distribution to our community partners and study area stakeholders. As I mentioned before, one of our first steps was to conduct a series of literature reviews to understand key concepts related to issues of food insecurity. Those concepts generally fell into one of 3 categories: equity and justice, food environment, and support services, whether those were in the form of local food initiatives, broader city or state incentives, or specific types of services intended to serve at-risk populations. I'm now going to hand over the next section of our presentation to Carson Eckardt. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jason. Hello, everyone. I'm Carson Eckardt, another one of the undergraduate members of our study team. Our study area consisted of 2 neighborhoods, Waterfront South and Bergen Square. Covering 1 mile, Waterfront South is a historically industrialized neighborhood and was once home to many well-known businesses, chief among them the New York Shipbuilding Company, which left the area in the mid-20th century. Since then, the neighborhood has been repeatedly cited for heavily polluting industrial use and is currently home to the Camden County Municipal Utilities Authority and the Covanta Trash to Steam Incinerator. To the northeast of Waterfront South is Bergen Square, a quarter square mile neighborhood that is predominantly residential, although much of its housing and building stock has fallen into disrepair and vacancy. To illustrate the background of our study neighborhoods, our GIS specialists, Joss and Katrina, created a series of maps highlighting key demographics. In the top left corner, the blue map highlights the percentage of residents in poor health and in each neighborhood, while the map directly to its right highlights the amounts of vacant parcels. The map in the bottom right corner visualizes the diversity index of each neighborhood, and the map in the bottom left corner represents age distribution across the city. The standalone map to the far right acts as a concise visual summary of the food environment in Camden, where each colored dot represents a different food service, whether those are fast food restaurants, grocery retailers that accept food assistance programs, or food pantries. We divided our project into 4 main methods, beginning with our food environment scan conducted in February. We then have our community survey, which ran from mid-February until early April, followed by our focus groups, which we held in March in Waterfront South and Bergen Square. Our final method was a series of individual interviews we conducted via Zoom throughout March. Our first major method was our food environment scan, which we conducted between February 14th to February 17th. As its name suggests, a food environment scan requires a researcher or teams of researchers to assess the presence of and quality of an area's local food infrastructure, as well as to understand the underlying or pre-existing conditions that have influenced the current state of that infrastructure. When conducting a food environment scan, it is important to consider aspects like the number of types of stores operating in a specific area, the quality and offerings of those stores, and how accessible those stores are to residents with different transportation needs. Prior to conducting our scans, our teams observed the study area using NJ Map and Google Maps to identify the locations of potential grocery retailers in Waterfront South and Bergen Square. After compiling a list of 14 potential sites, our team split into 3 smaller groups to visit these sites. For each location, we noted several key factors, including activity in and around the store's appearance, the surrounding infrastructure, and whether these stores accepted SNAP, WIC, and EBT. The team also examined the variety and quality of the products each store offered, paying specific attention to the availability and price of fresh produce and other healthy foods. Of the 14 stores our team initially identified, 2 were inaccessible to the public and 4 were or appeared to be closed. 7 of the remaining 8 locations clearly indicated their acceptance of food assistance programs, and 5 locations featured poor pedestrian infrastructure. None of the chosen locations offered bread, milk, and eggs at the same time, and prices varied at each location. Only 5 locations sold fresh produce, 1 sold fresh fruit, and 1 sold ethnic food products. The presenter for our next method, our community survey, is going to be Devon Nealer.
Thank you, Carson. Good evening, everyone. My name is Devon Nealer, and I'm the first of our 3 graduate team members involved in this project. The following analysis is based on the 91 survey responses that we received between February 14th and April 4th. So for demographics and shopping considerations, the majority of our respondents were between 35 and 54 years old. When asked how many people they purchased groceries for, the most common answer was 3 to 5. The amount of money spent each week on groceries was evenly distributed across the survey answers, but the highest number of respondents selected $50 to $74 per person. Most respondents pay for groceries using a debit or credit card or with cash, and about 17% said they use nutrition assistance programs such as SNAP or WIC. While most respondents said that there are no dietary restrictions in their households, those that did selected dairy-free, gluten-free, and vegan or vegetarian, with those who selected other indicating low sodium or no pork. When asked how many times a week someone in their household prepares food at home, nearly half said every day, with the most common foods being chicken, pasta, vegetables, and rice. For grocery shopping experiences, an overwhelming majority of respondents reported that they experienced difficulties when purchasing groceries, where the most common difficulties were prices, poor selection of products, lack of retail stores, and transportation. Most respondents indicated that they shop at supermarkets, big box stores like Sam's Club or Walmart, and discount grocery stores. Respondents also said that they would rather shop at chain stores than local businesses, and there were even 2 respondents who said they prefer to shop online. 81% of respondents said the closest food retailer is 1 mile or more away from their residence, and the most common method of transportation to these food retail locations was a personal vehicle. For social and cultural issues, 85% of respondents worried to some degree about having access to fresh, healthy, and affordable food. The most common answer was that they worry all of the time. When asked how to improve food access within their neighborhood, the most common responses were to add more food retail locations, expand the variety and quality of groceries at existing stores, and have grocery trucks travel through the neighborhood, similar to the Virtua mobile farmers market. Respondents were also asked whether they would participate in local food production programs like community or private gardening, and the majority said that they would be interested, but may not have the time, space, or knowledge to do so. For online delivery, the vast majority of respondents reported that they have reliable access to the internet, a smartphone, or other internet-enabled devices, with less than 10% saying sometimes or not at all. While most respondents said that they would be comfortable with purchasing items online for home delivery, 31% said that they would not feel comfortable, and 24% were neutral or had no opinion. Finally, respondents were asked which food groups they would feel comfortable ordering online, and the most frequently selected responses were snacks and grains, followed by fruits and vegetables. Snacks and grains are likely the most popular because they may invoke fewer concerns about poor quality. Our second graduate student, Christopher Tirri, will now present the focus group findings.
Thank you, Devon. Hello, everybody. We held our first focus group on March 7th at Heart of Camden in Waterfront South, and our second on March 9th at Shalom Baptist Church in Bergen Square. In total, these two focus groups engaged 15 participants that included members from local political offices, community-based organizations, faith-based institutions, and academic institutions, as well as members of the general population. Each session lasted approximately an hour and 15 minutes and was organized into two small group stations and a final large group discussion. The small group stations lasted approximately 10 minutes each and focused on the themes of geographic contexts of current and ideal food shopping locations and past experiences with and perceptions of online grocery shopping models. The large group discussion focused on issues related to food insecurity and what should be done to address the issue. At one of our stations, we asked participants to add planning dots to a map of Camden and its surrounding area to indicate where they live, where they purchase groceries, and where they would like to see a new grocery store. Each participant used the same color dot with different symbols for each location. A majority of participants indicated they travel an average of 10 miles outside of the Camden city limits to obtain the bulk of their groceries, frequently citing towns such as Brooklawn, Deptford, Morristown, Marlton, and Medford as their normal shopping locations. Popular retailers included wholesalers like BJ's, big box stores like Target, regional supermarkets like ShopRite, and local specialty shops like Mr. Meat. Reasons for traveling further included better selections and prices, as well as the desire to complete their shopping at as few locations as possible. At our other station, we gauged participants' past experiences with and ordering groceries online. Although some indicated they had used online ordering services in the past to mixed results, a majority of participants said they had not used such services because they prefer to see and touch their groceries. They do not trust whoever would be picking their groceries for them, and the services do not adequately accommodate single individuals. When asked to provide one word that described their feelings about a Camden-based online grocery delivery model, responses were predominantly positive, with over half of participants offering a sentiment related to the convenience and ease such a service would provide. The other half of participants, however, expressed varying degrees of uncertainty about the service because of aspects like timing, market saturation, and the quality of products. When considering what features they would like to see in a potential online grocery delivery service, participants emphasized a desire for as many of the products as possible to come from local farmers, as well as for the employees of the service to be local residents. They also expressed interest in having access to a variety of products, clear product information, competitive pricing and sales, and flexible delivery times. Timing was also one of participants' major perceived challenges with the success of the service, in that many of them stated they would prefer to be home when the delivery arrived. Other challenges included payment options and fees, the quality and correctness of products received, the availability of brand name products, and a user interface that may present difficulties for older residents. Many of these challenges were closely related to the concerns participants shared regarding having perishable groceries delivered to their homes. Once again, timing came up frequently, especially as it related to high levels of theft across the city when packages are left unattended on front porches for long periods of time. The quality and correctness of products were also common concerns, and participants also worried about the consistency of customer service and the types of packaging their groceries would come in to help stabilize temperatures. Once all participants had the opportunity to engage at each station, we joined together as a large group to discuss prominent food insecurity issues in their neighborhoods. 91% of participants agreed that food insecurity was a major issue, and they cited examples like the limited variety of stores in their neighborhoods, which tend to have inconvenient hours of operation and sell mostly unhealthy and expensive products. Participants also cited poor transportation as a key obstacle in accessing healthy foods because many residents are limited to what is within walking distance of their homes. But the stores within those manageable distances tend to attract a certain unsafe element because of loitering inside and outside of the stores. Participants also highlighted how many residents are unaware of the few healthier food resources in the city, such as the Virtua Mobile Farmers Market, and how city officials need to make residents' health and well-being a priority moving forward. The final portion of our group discussion focused on preferred solutions and the actors who could help achieve those solutions. Every participant agreed the primary solution should be to attract more grocery retailers to the area, whether those retailers are a large-scale supermarket or a series of smaller specialty shops. Say that 3 times fast. They also recommended the creation of citywide marketing initiatives, both formal and informal, to spread the word about valuable and healthy food resources across neighborhoods. On a related note, they suggested more food literacy and education classes across age groups so residents could better understand not just what constitutes a healthy diet, but also how to cook and prepare healthy foods in time-sensitive and fiscally appropriate ways. As for who should be involved, all participants offered the same one-word response: everyone. They agreed that healthy food initiatives would be successful if and only if actors from a wide variety of backgrounds collaborated. With the idea of community stakeholders in mind, I'm going to transition our presentation to our final speaker and 3rd graduate student, Katrina McCarthy, who's going to talk to you about the individual interviews our teammates conducted.
Thank you, Chris. As Carson mentioned before, our 4th and final qualitative method was a series of individual interviews. Whereas our survey and focus groups intended to help us understand residents' perceptions, our interviews sought insight from community leaders and food systems advocates. Through coordination with Dr. Minar and Mr. Byram, we compiled a list of 16 interviewees, potential interviewees, half of whom ultimately agreed to be interviewed. Our interviewees, all of whom were women, represented affiliations with 4 different nonprofit organizations, 2 academic institutions, a regional planning commission, and city council. The team created a set of 8 questions to ask during our semi-structured interviews, which we conducted via Zoom between March 7th and 17th, and which lasted approximately 30 to 45 minutes apiece. We developed our questions to understand the following topics: Camden's current food-related difficulties, previous efforts to address those difficulties, including what worked and what didn't, opinions about the possibility of a large-scale grocery store, what the interviewees were most excited about for Camden's future, and their thoughts on the suitability of an online grocery delivery model for Camden. Some of the feedback we received was that there is a small but very distinct channel of communication between approximately 5 to 10 key influencers in Camden that amplify messaging about food-related initiatives, so targeting this audience is critical. 2 interviewees mentioned that large grocery stores have previously had performance done, but ultimately backed out. Additionally, there is no ordinance on farmers markets in the city, so this is a key area of opportunity to meet residents' needs. Farmers markets are not limited by the need to have brick and mortar locations, and both of our neighborhoods in our study area are home to numerous vacant lots and community centers that could be utilized for pop-up and recurring markets. Although Camden's population varies greatly in age, all demographics expressed interest in having access to food that makes eating healthy easy and affordable. Finally, transportation is a prominent issue across the city, with Southern Camden only being serviced by bus, thereby limiting residents' connectivity to healthier food resources in northern sections of the city. Other key elements included the importance of transparency and overcoming stereotypes embedded in food systems decision-making. Interviewees cited the online grocery service model as a potential economic engine for the city, especially given how each neighborhood is so distinct in its needs. One interviewee expressed that there is a saturation of nutrition education in Camden City, and that residents are tired of hearing the same things. In recent nutrition education convenings, residents have been most interested in how to stretch food dollars and maximize their produce purchases. Some interviewees referenced the need for a citywide approach that is embraced and integrated into daily business and possibly chartered through citywide working groups such as the Camden Collaborative Initiative, often referred to as CCI. There were also sentiments that community members need to have a role in charting the course, and they should be empowered and compensated for their efforts. The recommendations we share with you today were largely influenced by our focus group and surveys. These methods allowed for the most in-depth examination of the network of food security issues Camden residents face. We also drew from previously published reports, specifically the DVRPC Camden Health element from 2021. We separated our recommendations into 4 categories. Our first recommendation is to build relationships with community members by establishing clear channels of communication that foster trust and transparency. Community members should also be given the opportunity to pursue policymaking positions, as well as to be trained and compensated to continue food systems work across the city. Next, a hybrid click and collect model should be considered, where consumers can place orders online, but also have the option to pick up their orders in person. This method is the most logical way to ensure the long-term success of an online grocery ordering delivery service, because it offers customers the convenience of online shopping with the quality control of shopping in person. Our third recommendation focuses on encouraging collaboration between existing stakeholders to help minimize competition and maximize service and efficiency across the city. This heightened collaboration emphasizes the importance of Camden's community partners by finding ways to capitalize on the work of their colleagues so they can enhance their messaging and impact. The last recommendation is to ensure future neighborhood plans include dynamic food systems elements, which tend to be glossed over in or omitted completely from many neighborhood plans. Including these elements is key to creating a more equitable food environment.
I'm back. So I want to talk to you about the next steps for our project, which was a huge consideration considering most of our participants among the focus groups and interviewees expressed concerns that once an initial project is done, many of the residents are left in the same place they are because there's no follow-up. So the final report for the study will be completed in early May and publicly shared later that month. Although this concludes the first phase of this project, Rowan University's Community Planning and Visualization Lab remains committed to continuing its work in and with Camden, aided by future undergraduate and graduate students, as well as the ongoing collaboration with Invincible City and other community organizations. Our spring 2022 team also wants to thank all of our survey respondents, focus group participants, and interviewees, many of whom provided their contact information as expressions of interest in follow-up meetings so they can participate in future phases of the project. We want to thank you all for joining us this evening. And at this time, I will open up the floor to any attendees who have questions, comments, or compliments.
Hello, everybody. This is Frederick Byarm from Invincible City.
Hey, Frederick.
So I just absolutely want to say that you guys did a phenomenal job. I don't have to say that 3 times fast, please. It was an excellent effort. I am totally excited by what you guys were able to put together. I really appreciate the elements of it where we as a nonprofit organization, You know, we look at this thing all the time, and sometimes you don't see what you don't see. So it's really great for the community to tell us, and for you guys, for the planning students, to be able to articulate what the community is telling you and back to us. So we've been able to learn from this event a great deal of information. Yes, we're looking forward to the final report, but even in this presentation, there's things that we learned immediately. And we're very grateful for that. We're very grateful to the planning studio, and kudos, you guys, wonderful job.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frederick. And to your point, as we are finalizing the draft for the report, we're making sure that we are using the respondents and participants' language as accurately as possible. That way, like you said, we're conveying their voices, not their voices filtered through us. So we want to make sure that their voices are heard and that the recommendations that end up taking place are actually the ones that they announced during these focus groups and interview sessions.
Hi, this is Martha Nealer. I have a quick question. I think it's for Katrina. Hi, Katrina. In your section of the proposal, I think, were you the one that talked with the partner organizations? I thought it was somewhat odd that they were all women. Did you find that there were a lot more women participating on the partnership end of things? Are there more women involved in working towards the solution than you're finding men?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Martha. So I at first was a little bit taken aback by that as well. And then in speaking to some of my colleagues, Professor Bucknam and also Dr. Minar, it's not uncommon for representatives in food systems especially to be working women. And I was a little bit surprised, but yeah, I guess this is kind of pretty standard practice, I guess you could say. But definitely it was empowering for me. It felt good to know that, you know, all women were representing this group.
Yeah, I've met a few folks from another project that are involved with that Inspira food bus. Is it Inspira, the food bus that comes through?
Yeah,
That's an incredible project. And we met a gentleman who was involved with that. And it's funny that you should mention the women. I thought it was, when you just said that they were all women that had been participating in that, that didn't connect for me until I realized the presenter that I had heard, he was the only man that I had heard step into the project. So I find that very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. We also were able to talk with Dr. Nicole Vaughan, who works on the Roots to Prevention program. She spoke to our class, and she's doing a lot of collaboration with them as well. So a lot of good work being done there.
Yeah, you guys all did a phenomenal job. Great work.
Thank you.
We have a question from the chat from someone named Craig. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. They said, well done presentation and project. Was there any outreach to the local retailers or area farmers market operators?
So that's a great question. We conducted our food environment scan, but we kind of did this independent of speaking with the corner store operators themselves, just due to limitations of bandwidth with our class being so small. But I think that that's a great idea, given that there has been initiatives, healthy corner store initiatives, that have been limited to Northern Camden in the past. So it would be great to kind of have their perspective on these kind of initiatives, since they haven't taken root in this part of Camden yet. So I think that's a great suggestion, but not something, Chris, did you have something you wanted to add?
And I wanted to add that to your question, Craig, a few of our focus group participants, in the Bergen Square focus group specifically, were in charge of either current or previous farmers market initiatives. So although we didn't reach out to anyone that was involved outside of those focus groups, we did at least get a semi-pulse on the community in terms of how those those farmers markets and food pantries work. And a lot of them are currently struggling to come back because of COVID. Some of them had to shut down temporarily. Some of them because they were giving out so much food for free. Now community residents are heavily relying on them. So it's almost having an adverse effect on food retailers in the area, because quite simply, why would you pay for something if you could get something fresher and healthier for free? So we definitely are interested in future phases of this project, figuring out how can we balance food retail with farmers markets and food pantries and things of those natures.
Mother, I believe her father.
Yes, hello, how are you?
I believe the mother had.
I am here and so is father. And I would say that you all did a very, very good job tonight. I can't get into the academics of it or whatever, but you guys are amazing and you did a great job, and it's certainly a project worth pursuing, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
You're welcome, Chris. Wait, hold on. Dad has something to say too. Hold on.
Chris, you and your cohorts did an excellent job in your presentation. So keep up the good work, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And of course, Chris, you were very well spoken.
Okay, and enough about me. Let's let people actually ask questions. Thank you.
Well, I want to just say that you all did such a great job. I think a couple of things that really stand out is how visually appealing the presentation was. I feel like it really speaks to a wide range of audiences and is kind of use graphics to get away from like academic ease, and because we're talking about something that's real and really has a huge effect on people's lives. So I think it's great that the language that you all chose to present this very real issue, I think, is reflective of that. I also think it's wonderful how you all really mentioned some limitations as you were talking. I think it's often common to say, we talk to everybody and we know it's gonna, we got all the opinions. And I think that no one can ever do that. So I think you all did that really wonderfully. So I'm really proud of all of you. I think you did great. I have a question, and it's okay if it didn't come up, but I love how on one of the recommendation slides, you all mentioned like really pursuing collaborations, and we know that that's really how you can get these things off the ground. And so I'm just curious if there were any hints upon potential collaborations that may have caught you all by surprise, or, I'm kind of curious about any excess capacity from seemingly unrelated organizations that might actually be the key to moving some of these recommendations forward. So more succinctly put, my question is just around like collaborations that popped up, even if they're hints of them, because who knows, maybe there's someone on this call that might be able to facilitate that.
I think Katrina has something to say for that.
Right. The food world is like all women. It's changing, but for a long time it was, a lot of women.
It is. And so I guess my one kind of experience with that is speaking to a member of City Council that had mentioned, that there is a budget at the state level for this, and there just needs to be that framework set up in the city to have this initiative pushed forward and prioritized. And she had mentioned that it had been a previous priority of the CCI. I wasn't able to kind of do more digging on that to find out why it is no longer. But I think that was kind of one of the key threads that I saw was, CCI prioritizes a lot of working groups across the city that are focused on green infrastructure and all these things that are important to solving environmental advocacy issues, and food systems just isn't being addressed right now at the city level. And so I think it's going to take, integrating it into daily business and also the working groups like CCI to be able to address it. But I wish I had more on that. So thanks, Megan. That's a great question.
No, and it definitely, I don't want that to feel like it should have popped up, but I'm always curious, especially, one potential collaboration that always comes to mind are just how food banks can be really integral, even in market-based solutions, just because they have so much sometimes excess capacity and infrastructure, and there's kind of Feeding America is looking at more how to integrate market-based solutions too, to try to avoid some of the problems about free food flooding the markets and affecting food retailers. So yeah, oh good. Well, I'll look forward to reading the report.
Thank you. And just to follow up on what you're mentioning, Nicole Vaughn from Roots to Prevention did say that a lot of their work has been on working on purchasing agreements with urban agriculture groups in order to not just get that food into these institutions like Virtua, but then also partnering with local distribution and preparation facilities that are close to the city of Camden, but will then take those vegetables grown, locally in that environment, process them, package them in such a way that also meets the needs of the institution to keep that, loop closed and close and efficient. So hopefully continuing more of that, as you said, would be awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice. I'm sorry. It's really nice to see these programs moving forward in new and innovative ways, because I think, like you said at the beginning, there's so many people who have been asked so many survey questions, and it feels like they go nowhere, and they keep getting asked and they don't see progress. So it's really nice to see that this is going to continue to go forward, and that they're seeing progress in the city with alternative and creative ways to have food delivered to their homes and have it packaged differently and things like that, rather than just being asked the same questions and not getting responses. And to see that Rowan is stepping forward and taking this in a new direction and partnering with local organizations in their neighborhoods, I think it's going to be really encouraging for them. And kudos to all of you for the great work and for developing these relationships. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And none of this would have been possible without, people taking the time to do those surveys and participate in the focus groups and interviews. So we're so indebted to everyone for their time and really appreciate it. And especially Frederick too, for partnering with us on this initiative. So thank you all so much for your time. And Mike, I don't know if there are any other questions.
Yeah, I was just about to step in here. There is one more question, again from Craig in the chat. Did you find any modern redlining from delivery companies? And will they serve Camden's neighborhoods that are equally distant from their stores as the wealthier suburbs?
That's a great question. I'm going to hand it over to Chris.
So Craig, we didn't find any official redlining to speak of. However, many of our, I wouldn't say many, a small handful of our interviewees did mention some word of mouth information about why certain retailers or distributors have not entered Camden. According to these interviewees, and again, they're speaking sort of on unofficial terms just from what they've heard around the city. Larger supermarkets, and then I'll mention one by name, ShopRite specifically, have created interesting regional market areas where Camden falls into what they consider to be the East Philadelphia market, even though there is no East Philadelphia, especially because there's a bridge and a river between Philadelphia and Camden. However, by saying that Camden falls into East Philadelphia, they then have a legitimate rationale for not creating a new store within the city limits of Camden, because they say, well, we have, ShopRite, for example, has one on Aramingo Boulevard, which theoretically is not geographically that far when you think just in terms of mileage, but when you factor in gas, tolls, the bridge, etc., it's not convenient, and it really is not part of the same market. So again, those are not official redlining tactics, but it definitely seems to be part of these lingering stereotypes that I think are influencing these decisions. Whether these retailers would actually admit that is another story entirely. But that does seem to be the frequent reason that larger stores are not interested in coming to the city. Great question, Craig. Thank you. I hope that answers it. All right, so Mike, final time. Does anyone else have any questions in the chat?
I don't see any other questions in the chat.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to hand it. Yeah, so our advising professor, Dr. Munar, would like to say a few words to everybody, and then we'll officially wrap up for the evening.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And I thank all the students here for doing a great job. And those who are joining today, maybe you heard it from me, my email. So you will hear from me again once the report will be done and be ready to be shared with everyone. And yeah, with that, let's wrap up. And thanks again. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to email me back. We'll get back to you. Thank you.